People used to treat me like I was nothing, but in that moment on the plane, I realized my worth would no longer be overlooked. As the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar private equity firm, managing over $60 billion in assets, I was used to being respected in boardrooms filled with world leaders. Yet there I was, standing in front of a gate agent, fighting tears as they watched me with barely concealed disdain. The incident unfolded like a cruel joke. I boarded the flight, confident and composed, but the server seemed to see me as a threat rather than a passenger. When I asked for water, her response dripped with condescension, reinforcing the racial bias I had encountered too many times before. It was the moment when security arrived, under the false premise that I was disruptive, that I recognized my humiliation would not end quietly. As I was removed from the plane, the damage was more than my pride. My tablet cracked, symbolizing the business deal slipping away. But the moment I reached the security room, something shifted within me. I instructed my assistant to pull our multi-million-dollar investment from Langston Air without hesitation. When I met with their executives, I showed them the footage of how I was treated. The collective jaws dropped echoed the outdated views of their airline culture. I laid down my demands for change, an apology, anti-bias training, and a commitment to accountability. It wasn't just about revenge. It was an opportunity to redefine an industry. A year later, as I boarded that same flight, a young black flight attendant greeted me with warmth instead of indifference. We both knew the significance of that moment. Change was tangible. My journey through humiliation transformed into a narrative of resilience and empowerment, a reminder that we all have the strength to demand justice and forge a better future. "Ma'am, you need to step off the plane," the gate agent said, her voice sharp and unwavering. Camille Reed raised an eyebrow, disbelief flashing across her face. "Excuse me? I have a meeting in an hour. I'm the CEO of Capital Equity. Surely you can see that." The uniformed man next to her crossed his arms, maintaining a stony expression. "It doesn't matter. We receive complaints about you being disruptive." "Disruptive? Because I asked for a glass of water?" Camille shot back, her voice steady but laced with indignation. She could feel the weight of eyes on her, passengers whispering, glancing her way. The flight attendant sauntered over, rolling her eyes. "Honestly, we don't have time for this nonsense. Just leave, you're causing a scene." Camille'd in, fighting back tears of frustration. "A scene? You're the ones treating me like a problem, like I don't belong here." The gate agent sneered. "We can have you escorted out." Art race. By who? The same security that's allowing this injustice? Suddenly, two security officers approached, towering over her. "Lady, we don't want any trouble." "Neither do I," she snapped, her composure straining under their dismissive gazes. "I'm a respected executive. I deserve basic human decency." Without warning, they grabbed her arms, pulling her out of her seat. Camille's tablet slipped from her grasp, smashing against the floor, a shattering sound that echoed her sense of humiliation. The onlookers gasped. She felt their pity, their silent judgment. As she was escorted off the plane, Camille caught the shocked expressions, hurling her dignity into the crowd. How could they think this was acceptable? At moment of despair, a new resolve ignited within her. "You'll hear from me," she vowed, heart pounding with righteous anger. This was far from over. Camille sat rigidly in her seat, the hum of the plane a cruel backdrop to the chaos unfolding at the gate. She watched with a mixture of disbelief and simmering anger as a gate agent, with a dismissive flick of the wrist, signaled security. Their eyes did not meet. She was invisible, just another disruption to be managed. The humiliation settled in like an unwelcome weight that threatened to suffocate her. When the flight attendant, the condescending smile was palpable, the words almost dripping with contempt. "Is everything all right now, ma'am?" Each syllable felt like a slap, laced with an undercurrent she couldn't ignore. The composed silence she'd practiced was cracking, and under her breath she muttered a sharp retort. Frustration mounted as she felt the stares of other passengers, a mix of confusion and disapproving glances directed at her, at the angry black woman. As security approached, her heart raced. They were here for her, falsely labeled as disruptive. She stood to confront them, The moment her tablet slipped from her hand, crashing to the floor with a sharp crack, she felt a sharp pang in her chest. Not just the device, but a critical point in her career was teetering on the edge, dangling in the balance of this absurdity. In the sterile confines of the security room, her phone felt heavy in her palm. She dialed her assistant, her voice low yet powerful. "Withdraw our funding from Langston Air. I won't invest in a company that treats its customers like this." Resolution settled within her like a spark igniting dry wood. This was her boiling point. Camille Reed took a deep breath, humiliation slowly lift as she stood firm in the security room. "Cancel the funding," she instructed her assistant, her voice steady. The steeliness in her tone surprised even herself, remnants of doubt fading. Blaming into the meeting with Langston Air's executives, she could feel the tension thick in the air. With sync confidence and purpose, she clicked the remote and the footage played. A stark reminder of the disrespect she endured. "This isn't just about me," she said, her eyes glinting with resolve. "It's about the accountability we owe to every passenger who faces this kind of treatment. You left me with no choice but to act." The executives shifted uncomfortably, their faces a mix of guilt and unease. "We understand your position, Miss Reed," one of them stammered. "No, you don't," Camille interjected quietly but assertively. "You don't understand the power dynamics that put people like me at a disadvantage. I don't just want an apology, I need systemic change." As she outlined her demands, mandatory anti-bias training and an oversight board, her heart raced, but it was no longer out of fear, it was determination. Hours later, as she stepped out of the meeting room, a small but triumphant smile crept onto her face. Camille felt the faint echo of her earlier humiliation fading into the background. She was reclaiming her narrative, brick by brick, and with every small victory, she could sense a larger comeback on the horizon. Camille stood in the sterile security room, her heart beating steadily as she replayed the shame of being pulled off the plane. Each moment felt painfully etched in her mind, the condescending laughter of the flight attendants ringing in her ears, but no longer. She reached for her phone, breathing deeply, and with one decisive call, she instructed her assistant to withdraw their $5 billion investment from Langston Air. Days later, the boardroom was tense with expectation when Camille entered, the digital screen flickering behind her. She stood tall, a stark contrast to the anxious executives before her, and clicked play. The footage revealed her humiliation in high definition. The gate agent's dismissive sneer, the flight attendant's arrogant jeers, the moment security seized her as if she were a criminal. The silence in the room deepened as the executives bore witness to their own employees' disgrace. With a calm but unwavering voice, Camille laid out her demands. Yes, she wanted restitution for the damage done, but more importantly, she sought a commitment to change. Mandatory anti-bias training and a dedicated oversight board were non-negotiable. As the executives shuffled uncomfortably in their seats, their power waning, Camille knew this was her moment. The very authority that had once belittled her was now crumbling beneath the weight of their own incompetence. After much deliberation, they accepted her terms. As she left the meeting, a quiet triumph swelled within her, a warm glow against the dark memories. Days turned into weeks, and soon Langston Air began implementing her policies. Camille's resolve had triggered a cultural shift that would resonate throughout the industry, prompting other airlines to reevaluate their practices. A year later, when she stepped onto the same flight, the familiar chaos of travel washed over her. But this time, she was greeted by a young, black flight attendant wearing a bright smile that mirrored Camille's own sense of victory. In that moment, all the silent triumph and simmering anger coalesced into something beautiful. Camille knew she had not just reclaimed her dignity, she had carved out a path to justice that others could now tread. Sitting quietly on the edge of the runway, I replay the events of that day, each moment pulsing vividly in my mind. The humiliation of being pulled off a flight, the sidelong glances from the crew, the condescension veiled in politeness. I had always walked through life feeling secure, yet they made me question everything. But as I faced that dark moment, anger transformed into resolve. I took a stand not just for myself, but for all who felt unseen. Now, as I reflect, I see how that experience shaped me. It ignited a fire to demand accountability and bring about change, not just for my own dignity, but for the future of countless others. While the scars remain, They are reminders of my strength. I learned that standing up can indeed shift the tides of injustice. So I ask you, do you think I went too far? What would you have done in my shoes? Have you ever had someone treat you like that? Share your thoughts and experiences below, and let's keep this conversation alive. Together we can forge paths toward justice and understanding.